The Senate chamber was electric with tension that afternoon, the kind of energy that made even the marble pillars seem to vibrate. Reporters filled the upper gallery, their pens poised for the next great political moment. Senator Elizabeth Warren stood tall at the podium, her voice sharp and confident as she delivered a fiery speech on corporate accountability. Every word she spoke seemed aimed like a spear at her colleague, Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. The crowd could sense it. The confrontation wasn't just political, it was personal. Warren's intellect and passion were legendary, but Kennedy's wit and Southern charm had their own devoted following. What no one expected was that today, those two forces would collide in a way that would echo far beyond the chamber walls. As Warren spoke, her tone sharpened, her words painting Kennedy as out of touch, a defender of the powerful rather than the people. "When you vote against protecting working families," she said, her gaze piercing, "you're not serving your constituents, you're serving corporate greed." The room fell silent, all eyes darting between her and Kennedy. He sat still, hands folded, eyes calm but unreadable. A flicker of tension passed over his face, quickly replaced by that familiar easy grin. To many, it looked like she had cornered him, left him without an escape. But to those who knew Kennedy well, that smile meant something else entirely. He was about to strike back, not with anger, but with something far more powerful, grace wrapped in truth. When Warren finished, applause rippled through her side of the chamber, while Kennedy rose slowly, straightening his tie. His voice, when it came, was soft and deliberate, carrying that slow Louisiana drawl that made every word sound like a story. "Senator," he began, "I've been called a lot of things in my time, some true, some not, but I've never been called a servant of greed by someone who's made a career out of dividing the folks she claims to represent." A murmur swept through the room. His tone wasn't cruel, but there was a deep steadiness in it, the kind that comes from experience and conviction. "You talk about protecting people," he continued, "but protecting people means listening to them, even when they don't agree with you." His words hung in the air, and even those who had cheered Warren found themselves quietly reflecting. For a brief moment, Warren's expression softened, but she quickly regained her composure. She fired back with statistics, facts, and fiery rhetoric, her brilliance undeniable. But Kennedy didn't match her in volume, he matched her in heart. "Numbers tell one story," he said gently, "but people tell another. I come from a place where a man's handshake still means something, where a woman working 2 jobs doesn't have time for political theater. You want to help them? Then let's stop fighting each other long enough to listen." There was something disarming in his humility, something that made his words hit deeper than any prepared rebuttal. The room began to shift, the air thick not with rivalry, but with an uncomfortable truth. As the exchange continued, Kennedy's calmness contrasted sharply with Warren's rising frustration. She was used to winning debates with precision and intellect, but this was different. He wasn't playing to win, he was speaking from something raw and real. "You think I don't care about working people?" he said finally. "Ma'am, I grew up watching my neighbors lose everything in floods, and I've seen what happens when Washington talks and no one listens. You've got a big heart, Senator Warren, but maybe sometimes, big hearts forget small voices." That line hit like a lightning strike. The gallery went dead silent, and even Warren lowered her gaze for a moment, her expression betraying a mix of respect and frustration. Afterward, the confrontation became headline news. Clips of the exchange spread across the internet within hours. Some praised Warren's fire, others celebrated Kennedy's composure, but everyone agreed, it had been one of the most emotional exchanges the Senate had seen in years. Late-night talk shows joked about it, commentators analyzed every word, and social media lit up with debate. But beneath the noise, something deeper was happening. Kennedy's words had touched people beyond politics. They had spoken to a yearning for dignity in disagreement, for the kind of dialogue that lifted rather than destroyed. Even some of Warren's supporters admitted privately that there was something profoundly human about his response. In the days that followed, Kennedy received letters from across the country, some from Democrats, others from Republicans, and many from people who had long given up on politics altogether. One letter came from a single mother in Ohio who wrote, "You made me feel seen, Senator. You reminded me that politics doesn't have to be cruel." Another came from a retired teacher in Texas who said, "You didn't just respond, you restored something we'd lost, decency." Kennedy read every one of them, quietly humbled. He hadn't meant to humiliate Warren or win a headline. He just wanted to remind people that disagreement didn't have to mean disrespect. Meanwhile, Warren, too, reflected on what had happened. Late one evening, after the cameras were gone and the halls of the Capitol were quiet, she found herself thinking about Kennedy's words. She had built her career on passion and conviction, but somewhere along the way, she realized the noise of politics had begun to drown out the human side of it. The next week, she crossed the aisle and found Kennedy sitting in the cafeteria, sipping coffee. "You made your point," she said with a wry smile. "And maybe you were right about one thing: we all need to listen more." Kennedy looked up, surprised but pleased. "Well, ma'am," he said, tipping his head, "listening's free. We should try it more often." That unexpected moment of humility between two rivals became the seed of something greater. Over the next few months, the two senators began working together on a bipartisan bill to support small businesses recovering from natural disasters, a project neither could have passed alone. Their cooperation shocked Washington, but it inspired millions of Americans who were weary of endless fighting. People began to see that empathy could coexist with conviction, that strength wasn't about volume but about heart. Kennedy's comeback had turned into something far more powerful than a viral moment. It had sparked a movement toward respect in public life. Years later, when both senators had moved on from the daily grind of politics, that moment in the chamber was still remembered as a turning point. Not because one of them won or lost, but because it reminded everyone watching that courage comes in many forms. For Warren, it was in facing her critics without fear. For Kennedy, it was in responding with grace instead of anger. Together, they had shown that true leadership isn't about humiliation or victory, it's about humanity. Their clash, once heated and divisive, became a lesson in how the best comebacks aren't those that destroy an opponent, but those that heal a conversation. And in a world that often forgets how to listen, that might just be the most shocking comeback of all.